Hi, Circle Summer School kids. This is Mrs. Goldsmith, and I teach music in Towanda. I'm really excited to get to share a story with you today. It's called The Icky Little Duckling. Not the ugly little duckling like you might know of, but the icky little duckling. And it's a fun story about Mr. Rabbit and a little duck that become really good friends by the end of the story. This story was written and illustrated by Steve Smallman and Tim Warrens. Here we go. Mr. Rabbit liked everything to be just so. Every flower, just so. Every pebble, just so. Every leaf in the forest perfectly neat, and just so. One day he was busy tidying when he found something smooth and speckly and perfect. "Oh, my whiskers," he gasped. "You're just the thing for my collection." Mr. Rabbit hurried home. He carefully washed the perfect speckly thing and placed it, just so, in the middle of his collection. He loved it. He often sat polishing it and humming a happy little hum. But then one evening, crack! A jagged line appeared down the side of Mr. Rabbit's perfect speckly thing. "Oh, my whiskers," he gasped in horror. "Don't worry, we'll soon have you mended." But it was too late. Crack! It broke in two, and out came something icky, sticky, and strange. Not just so at all. It looked up at Mr. Rabbit and said, "Mama!" "What?" cried Mr. Rabbit. No, I am not your Mama," it said again, even louder. Then it hopped onto the floor, grabbed hold of Mr. Rabbit's leg, and wouldn't let go. "Yuck," groaned Mr. Rabbit. He popped the icky, sticky thing into a big, bubbly bath. "First, you must be clean. We'll find your mama in the morning." Soon there were bubbles on the floor, bubbles on Mr. Rabbit, and even bubbles all over the burrow. "Goodness me," gasped Mr. Rabbit. "You're a duckling." Gurgle, 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 went the duckling's stomach. "Oh, bother," grumbled Mr. Rabbit. "Now you're hungry. Do you like oatmeal? Do you guys like oatmeal?" The little duckling did like oatmeal. She liked to sit in it. She liked to splash in it, and she liked to share it with Mr. Rabbit. "Yuck!" groaned Mr. Rabbit and filled up the tub again. "Yoo-hoo," went the little duckling. "Bedtime, thank goodness," cried Mr. Rabbit. "It will soon be morning." He popped the duckling into a box and tucked her in, just so. That's an interesting place to store your duck. "Mama!" But the duckling didn't stay just so for long. Mr. Rabbit flopped into his chair. "What a mess," he groaned. "I'll tidy up in the—" "Mama," whispered the little duckling. She scrambled onto Mr. Rabbit's lap, snuggled up, and fell fast asleep too. Next morning, they set off to find the duckling's mama. Duckling found a stretchy thing and some spotted bugs. And then she found a grumpy old prickly monster and had to have a hug for Mr. Rabbit. But they didn't find her mama. Back at home, Mr. Rabbit made some more oatmeal. The duckling found lots of lovely things to play with. "Put those down," shouted Mr. Rabbit. "Carefully." "Oh, I hope we find your mama soon," he sighed. But they didn't find her the next day, or the day after that. Then one morning down beside the stream, the duckling shouted, "Mama!" And this time she was right. She leaped to meet her family in a happy huddle of kisses and quacks. Then as Mr. Rabbit turned to leave, the little duckling jumped into his arms and gave him a great big feathery hug. "Thank you so much, Mr. Rabbit," said Mrs. Duck. Back in his burrow, Mr. Rabbit scrubbed and polished until everything was as neat as before. His books were just so, his boxes were just so, and his collection was tip-top, totally just so. But he didn't feel right. Everything was just so, but he was just so lonely. Even his special things didn't seem so special anymore. Then Mr. Rabbit started to smile. "Oh, my whiskers," he cried. "I'll need lots of oatmeal." I wonder what he was planning. Mr. Rabbit invited the duck family for breakfast. His burrow didn't stay neat for long, but it was filled with giggles and quacks and fun and friends. And Mr. Rabbit thought it was just perfect. If you'd like to take an AR test on this book, the number is here on your screen, number 189039.